Okay. So waiting for Mrs. Murphy. Yeah. Okay. This convenes the April meeting of the USD 453 Board of Education. One quick note for those who are watching us online. Normally in our board meetings, we have a chance for unscheduled public comment, but because of the format required by the Zoom meeting, we can't do that. So if you have questions, we're more than willing to ask them or answer them for you. Just send them to either most appropriate person, be that your teacher, the building principal, Dr. Roth, or us, and all the contact information is available on the district website. So with that said, go ahead and have the roll call. Mr. Kearney.
I'm here and there.
Mr. Goodman.
Here.
Mr. Powell.
Here.
Mrs. Price.
Here.
Mrs. Wells.
Here.
And I'm here, Doug Darling. And apparently Mrs. Murphy hasn't been able to connect yet. Did Brenda hear anything from her? As far
No.
Okay, so, all right. We'll go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll put our hands over our heart, and Dr. Roth will stand up and lead us.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, my scouting says now I wanted to say two, but Danielle's doing it. Roth, if you'd be so kind as to give us the district mission statement.
Yes, the mission of Leavenworth Public Schools is to prepare every student for success in every classroom every day.
And classrooms are virtual today.
That is very much true.
Okay, did we have any scheduled patron input?
None?
All right. Adoption of the agenda.
Mr. President, if this is Mike, is this point of order, is this a place to remove a consent item or wait until we're ready for consent?
It could be done now if you wanted to.
Yes, I would like to remove the consent item for the play on from line 3.7 and put it at 4.8.
4.0 or 4.1.
4.1, correct.
Okay. All right, we've got a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, Mrs. Price seconded the motion. All those in favor, raise a hand. And we have 6-0. All right, moving on to item 2, consideration of the 2018-2019 financial audit report. And that was some very dense reading. Dr. Roth, Beth is going to handle this for us.
Yeah, Jake will bring Beth and our auditor in to do a report.
Okay. Okay. Hello. And there's Beth. So your court, Beth.
Okay, good evening. Tonight we have Karen Lynn with us to go over the audit report.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I appreciate the time on your agenda this evening to talk to you about the audit report. This year, well, first, my name is Karen Lynn, and I'm a director with BT & Co. in Topeka. This year we have 2 reports, and I think your agenda mentioned that there are 2 reports to present the audit this year. One is the financial statements themselves, and the second one is the single audit that is separately presented. The financial statement is under the letterhead and the opinion of Kramer and Associates out of Leavenworth, and the single audit piece is under the letterhead of BT & Co. and the opinion of our firm, BT & Co. out of Topeka. And just to give you a little background about that, our firm has worked with and professionally with Kramer and Associates for many years. And this year, Tony Kramer approached us and indicated that he is nearing retirement, and he has had some issues in terms of his staffing with his audits, and he asked if we would assist him in getting the completion of the audit with the single audit piece, getting that completed, and we were happy to assist him. And so that's why the financial piece that he had completed is finished under his letterhead, but then our firm, and we have extensive experience with single audits and school district audits, and we were able to step in and finish that single audit piece for him. So, but I'm presenting both pieces this evening. So first, the financial piece. So what I'd like to do is to just present really the conclusions from the audit that are those pieces that are required really for you to hear from the auditor, and those conclusions that are important for you to hear from the audit process. First, the financials received an unmodified opinion. That opinion states that in our opinion, the financial statements are free of material misstatement. And that is the best form of opinion that can be given to a set of financial statements, and the opinion that you should be looking for. That opinion is on the regulatory basis. That regulatory basis is the form of financial statements that the state of Kansas prescribes, and that you have a resolution at the beginning of the year to adopt. And so that is, excuse me, so that is what we used to call the cash basis cash and budget basis, and now it's called the regulatory basis. So during the audit process, things that we look at are accounting policies, and we look at unusual transactions, things like that. If there's anything that is either inconsistent or unusual, anything not appropriately applied, we would bring those to your attention. Anything that is difficulties during the audit process, those would be items that we would bring to your attention, or anything that wasn't provided to us, any difficulties, anything like that would be indications of more serious issues, and we would be sure to bring those to your attention as a board. So there's nothing in any of those areas that are out of the ordinary or that weren't appropriate. All good conclusions from the audit process. And so all of those are good conclusions that we want to bring to your attention. Also, and I believe if you have documents, Beth, is that correct, that they all have the documents in front of them? Attached to the letter, not the financial statements themselves, but the letter that was a part of the packet is a letter on the district's letterhead. This is called the management's representation letter. Our audit standards require that certain pieces of information be presented in writing to us as the audit firm. And you can see, and actually in this case, it's addressed to Kramer and Associates. We believe that this is a lot of good information for you as a board, as you read through the financial statements and digest the financial statements, and as you fulfill your fiduciary responsibility towards financial accounting matters. So we do encourage you to read through this letter as you read through the financials, so that you have that additional information for you in understanding of the pieces of information that go into those financial statements. So those are the conclusions from the financial statements. Again, unmodified opinion, which is the best form of opinion that you can be receiving, and no deficiencies or other findings that we need to report in regard to the financial statements. And then shifting to the single audit. The single audit is required because of the federal dollars that are received by the district. Approximately $5 million were spent by the district during the year of federal dollars. That requires that we perform some internal control and compliance testing of certain programs that the district spent its money on, that money on. We've selected, as a part of the testing and the risk assessment that we performed, ended with us selecting Title I and the Striving Readers Comprehensive Literacy Program as the two programs that we tested in our single audit test work this year. If you have that single audit document in front of you, page 8 of that document has all of the conclusions from the single audit test work. And the conclusions from that show that we had no material weaknesses that were identified, but we did have one significant deficiency, and that deficiency was in the area of the procurement, and that is discussed in that document on starts on page 9, but the bulk of the information on that is on page 10. This is related to, excuse me, related to the suspension and debarment requirements that are part of the federal program. And you can see the cause and effect and then the recommendation. And if you turn on to page 11, management's response is listed there. And I believe that this is now being addressed and being taken care of by the district. And it was really a matter of not being aware that program requirement was there. So, and the one thing I do want to point out is on page 9, there is, it's listed there, auditee qualified as a low risk auditee, and the answer there is no. And sometimes that's concerning to people, and I want to point out and describe what that means. There are, you're either a low risk auditee or not a low risk auditee. And the answer no there is simply because you use the regulatory basis that is prescribed by the state of Kansas. So it doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong or that there's any issues, but unless you're using GAAP, unless you use GAAP, then you're not a low risk auditee. So I just wanted to point that out because sometimes that concerns people when it says, are you a low risk auditee? And the answer is no. So other than the one item that I pointed out, there were no other deficiencies or other issues from the single audit from that $5 million of federal expenditures that the district spent during the year. So those are the conclusions from both the financial and the single audit test work that was done during the year, and I would open for any questions that anyone might have.
So Beth gets to keep her job.
Well, after she saved us that $1 million last month, I think she gets to. Now, as my understanding was, part of the confusion on those sources were the sources that were called for in the grant. And because they were in the grant, they were not checked. Is that correct? Dr. Rose?
Because they were in the grant, we went with those companies.
Yeah.
Because otherwise KSDE would have put a little more requirements on us.
Okay. So we had a reason for going with that. That was my understanding. I just wanted to make sure that, the other board members knew that as well. But at this point in time, going future, we can go ahead and check on possible debarments, et cetera. Is that correct?
Correct, we will.
Okay.
And part of it is just maintaining documentation of that rationale and that decision, and support for that decision, for that decision. And I think part of it was that support and that rationale was not documented.
Okay.
Yes, we missed something.
Yeah, and just one last question from my perspective is, we found a deficiency. Is it prudent at this point for the district to file some kind of mitigation record that we have verified that the selectees met the requirements and we were in compliance, basically?
The schedule of findings and question costs that's in the report really has all of the factors that are really needed for the federal agencies to evaluate that. So I don't really think that it's necessary to do any further follow-up with that, because I think that they will be able to see all of the information, including management's response and corrective action. And with that corrective action, they'll be able to assess what they believe any follow-up that they need. And if they believe that they need follow-up, then they will communicate with you. A lot of the federal agencies will look for next year's follow-up, because they will then ask next year's auditor to come in and do a follow-up on this. And their expectation will be that next year this issue will be resolved, and then it'll be a closed issue. And so I think that this the information that's in the report will really be all that's needed until the follow-up next year.
Okay. Any further questions from the board? Okay. In that case, I need a motion to approve the 2018-2019 fiscal year audit report.
I'd like
So
to make
moved.
a motion to approve the report.
Okay, we have a motion from Mrs. Murphy
Second,
and a second from Mr. Powell. And did Brenda catch when Mrs. Murphy entered the conference?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion, and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise a hand or say aye.
Aye.
Okay, 7-0. Thank you, Ms. Lynn, and for all the hard work. It was mind-numbing to me as I tried to read through that fiscal jargon, which is not my expertise, but it did lay it out fairly well, and I do appreciate all the hard work that everybody did. So,
Appreciate
Thank you.
the time this evening, and look forward to hopefully working with you again. Thank you
All
very
right.
much. All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 3, the consent agenda, which now consists of items 3.1, check register, 3.2, gift log, 3.3, minutes, 3.4, treasury report, 3.5, consideration of 2020-2021 administrative, certified and classified employee handbooks, 3.6, consideration of membership with KASB and the KSB Legal Fund. And I do have one question on that, probably for Mrs. Sloan, if she's available, and that shouldn't they be licensed employee handbooks? I thought we changed all that terminology last year, or that the state changed it on us. Mr. Darling? Yes, Mrs. Sloan. I'm not hearing you. I'm showing you having a dead mic.
Don't
Can
say
you hear
that.
me now, sir?
Yeah. What was the answer on whether that ought to be a licensed employee handbook versus a certified?
They mean the same thing. Previously, it was called certified, but we can change it to licensed to reflect the common language now.
Yeah, I would suggest we might want to think about doing that one. All right. And
Darling,
yes,
could we verify whose shoulder that is on the screen?
that's Mrs. Murphy.
There she is.
I don't like it when my wife gives me that list Murphy just gave you. So that's okay. We can identify that it's her.
Okay.
So, all right, need a motion? to
I'd
approve?
like to make a
Motion to approve the agenda as you read the details.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the modified consent agenda.
Second.
Mrs. Wells has a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, everybody in favor, raise a hand. We have 7-0. Thank you very much. Moving on to what is now the new item 4.1, consideration of play on and Pixie Lot live broadcasting programs for LHS football and basketball games.
Mr. Powell, you want to ask your question, and then Mr. Kuntz is on to be able to respond to it.
Yeah, I've got a number of questions, but the first one is, who's responsible for basically being the executive agent for this system for the district?
I would be.
Okay. So then, will this allow recording of track events as well?
Yes, it will be. Yes, yes. Any activities that take place at the stadium or in the gymnasium would be able to be recorded.
Okay. I also noticed that this organization has the capability of providing a similar manual capability. Even though it's not from specifically the sports perspective, but maybe more to a larger curriculum perspective. Are we looking toward growing this maybe to a broadcast curriculum capability, et cetera?
Yes, it can. There is a manual way to do this as well. I have not looked into having a class in that. I know currently we do not, and that was one reason that this system was one that it was very helpful for us and the other schools in our league. They came away with the same perspective as in it can be ran by itself. We don't have to find somebody every game to run the camera system. So
no, and I appreciated the automated side of it. That was one of my earlier questions, and I appreciate the feedback that I got early because it allowed me to do some research. So it's actually a pretty interesting system.
It is.
Now, it talked about being able to sell the ability to watch it and for us then to share in those profits. And that's why I asked about the executive agent. Who's going to manage that for our district? So we have someone who is staying in touch with the company, who's monitoring the benefit that our students are getting from this.
That will all run through me. When we have funds available from them, when they distribute those, I think it's 4 times a year.
Right.
Once they're distributed, they will come to the school. The school will deposit them in our athletic account at the high school to be used for athletics. And as I'm sure you did a little research on it. We can put ads on there to sell ad spots if so choose to do. Plus, we also get a kickback of the monthly or the yearly subscriptions that patrons may subscribe to it.
Yeah, and that leads me into my next question, which was who within our district is going to develop a marketing plan to be able to market and advertise, if not local, even larger organizations that might help offset the $7,000 we have to invest?
I hadn't really got that far in it as of yet. I have the funds available to purchase the systems through what's going to used to be our Citizens National Bank tournament at the high school, because we are basically, that tournament is going away because we were not able to secure the teams available to play in that tournament. And we have funds in that account that I was going to, I guess, kind of use towards the purchase of these cameras. But that was something that I wanted to look into, was the, maybe trying to find some ads, some people to do that to offset some of the costs of it. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's where I'm coming from, is that anytime we can take and leverage a capability and make it grow, make it larger,
Absolutely.
that's our
I
responsibility.
would think that would be a good thing for the DECA program to work
A
with.
number of different ways, exactly.
Absolutely.
So, but I think we need an intentional effort to then leverage what will be created for the sports program.
Yeah.
And I would recommend anyone on the board who hasn't gone and looked at this capability, they ought to probably take a look at it, because my last question is this, Lansing's got a kid who's probably a professional material athlete, and this is his senior year. And so he's not going to get the opportunity in this last month to really show his talent. So talent scouts can't go after him like they normally do. So do you see this as a capability that can be shared with talent scouts, or is it currently being shared where they can go in and actually dive deep into a school sports program and find those kids that they want to reach out to?
As of right now, we already have a program that does that, but by purchasing this, we won't have to have somebody manning a camera to videotape the game and possibly miss plays. Because I know as a former basketball coach, I would be watching game tape and a student will miss 2 or 3 plays because they got to talking to a friend or they got distracted or in some form or fashion. But we've already got that capability where we've got games downloaded. The students can actually go in and make a game highlight film already for themselves to do that. But this system will also, allow anybody, a scout to hop on somewhere and watch a game. If they don't want to travel from, I don't know, Iowa somewhere to come watch an athlete that they know they would like to recruit, they could hop on NFHS because they know we're playing, on Tuesday night. They could watch them on there. They could watch them there if they didn't want to have to travel that far. So, I mean, there's endless capabilities with it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I just would recommend to the board, if you haven't looked at the capability, it's probably worth your while to go on the internet and see what this allows our sports program to do. I would just offer that I think that we need to probably a little more intentional effort to leverage what we can do to offset the cost, because I think it's built into the program. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
It's also going to give us since we play varsity soccer home games at the Pioneer Stadium, that allows us to do that. And another problem that is always habitual, especially since we decided to move graduation, once we're allowed to have them again inside, is allow us to broadcast our senior class graduations, which is always a good thing to spread, because there's never enough tickets for the main theater, and some of the satellite locations like the auxiliary gym are not necessarily the best places to watch that. So grandma and grandpa can watch that from across the nation, which is a good thing.
Now,
So-
what's the length of time for this? Is it a contract agreement?
I'm sorry, sir. I didn't. You kind of broke up.
The length of time for the contract?
It's a 5-year contract to start off with, and then after that, it just rolls over every year
Okay.
if we continue the system.
Okay.
But it's
And,
not a 5,000, it's not a 5,000 or a $7,000 annual expense. It's a one-time 7,000.
Yeah.
No,
Right. Now, but the equipment is not
One-time expense.
ours. It doesn't become ours. It's still theirs, and they'll pull it
no,
out.
it will be their equipment, but I think $7,000 over 5 years, almost to me pays for itself in the fact that our kids can be seen by their parents on the road. Our kids can be seen, by any family member that's not in town, if they would like to, watch them participate in basketball or wrestling or soccer or football or anything that goes on in those athletic venues. So,
Okay. If within a 5-year period a better service comes along, what sort of obligation are we locked into?
I'm not really sure that we're locked into a 5-year. I mean, locked into. It's just a 5-year. They run the 5-year contract because they are leasing it, basically leasing it out to us. So that 5-year contract leases the 5-year contract. With this system, I know Acacia is with this as well. They run all of their playoff games or their state games through NFHS and through this system as well. So I'm not sure. I've looked into some other programs along with this. I'm sure NFHS is going to stay up and stay on top of this game because they're the national federation for high school athletics.
Okay.
John, if you look at the contract that they sent as part of it, I think there is a content contract obligation for 5 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, you're correct.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the contract for $7,000 for a 5-year agreement for the Pixel Lot School Broadcast Program System.
I second it.
Okay, Mrs. Murphy made the motion, Mr. Powell seconded it. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise a hand. 7-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much for your time.
Well, thank you too. All right, going on to item 5.1, consideration of elementary social studies and science adoption 2020 and 2021.
It's pretty extensive in what we had for backup on the agenda for you as a board to consider. If you did have any questions regarding this, Mr. Bodensteiner is available to answer any questions.
Any of the board members have a question?
I didn't have a question. I just had a comment. I appreciate the answers to my questions about the content and you guys getting back to me so timely. Thank you, Ryan. You've done a great job.
Hey, it's no problem. We wanted to take the opportunity to kind of show you how we refresh the adoption process a little bit and having some new board members on who haven't gone through that. So that's kind of the general framework of process we're using moving forward. Obviously, every adoption is a little bit different in its unique personality. But going through that process, that's kind of where we ended up with Twig and Rozzy, and I'm happy to answer any other questions or go through any of that presentation if there were further follow-up.
Yeah, I do kind of want to know more about Rozzy Learning. I got on their website. They've only been around for less than 4 years.
Yep.
How did we come to pick them as opposed to other alternatives?
Yeah, so when we initially started to get that feedback on what kind of the wants and desires were for social studies, knowing that currently we have no common resource in K through 5. We have a McGraw-Hill product in 6th grade currently that's from when they were truly departmentalized. The feedback, especially from our leadership, was to not go in the direction of a quote unquote traditional textbook or something along that line, knowing that social studies often folds into other content areas at the elementary level. Also knowing that a couple of our buildings have gone down the route of looking at really project-based learning and PBL as an initiative. So when I was honestly looking at things that fit it well into our literacy initiative, things that had some sort of project base to it, and that were lighter on those materials, knowing that quote unquote textbook was not the route our leadership wanted to go. From there, we had 2 products. One was a little more, I would call, intensive. Price tag was a little bit higher, it was a little more in that vein. This one had a little more flexibility. It is a newer company, newer product. But their other pieces, their STEM, their science, their ELA have been around a little bit longer. We did do some reference to make sure those pieces were checking out for districts. One big advantage that I know I mentioned, I think in this response, is that because it's a newer and a little bit smaller company, they're actually going to be more flexible to our needs. So we've actually had discussions already if they're going to take lesson requests from our staff and potentially add those to their platform because they're looking to, number one, grow the company in general, but number two, grow into Kansas specifically because they're based in St. Louis. So they're really hoping that we can be a partner for them to get back on what Kansas schools need, because the social studies standards are so state specific. So that flexibility to grow with us. But really the biggest advantage, I think I mentioned this to them as well as too, is that we can use this as a springboard to maybe more community focused project-based learning pieces, or integrate it to other content areas, since we don't have that common resource right now.
Okay. The other thing that I tried to get on their website, and maybe this is simply an artifact of the fact that I don't have a contract with them and I can only see 1 through 20, but it mostly centered around social studies events regarding Arizona. I'm assuming there's more to it than that.
Yeah, there's definitely more to it than that. They've actually, even since we were piloting, they added some Kansas specific lessons.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know was, as long as it's more Kansas focused.
Yeah, their social studies is their newest product that they've rolled out. STEM, I think, was their first one, and they've had some other pieces, and we actually get access to all of them in the purchase, even though social studies is our focus. But they would definitely be the first to say that they're looking to build that up, which is why they've actually talked about bringing in some part-time work to work with them to develop more lessons as they get requests from ourselves and from other member districts they're working with.
Okay.
I had a question on the expendables in the various experiments. Are they going to be refreshed by the district, or is the building budget's going to have to encompass all those expendables?
So the kits, and I can't give you an exact percentage, but the big ticket items, so to speak, are non-consumable in the kits. Your scales, your things, microscopes, marble racers, goggles for lab safety, things like that. Most of the consumables in terms of the kits that we've come across are pretty common resources. And whether that's something that Ms. Batts and I will take care of from the teaching and learning side or work with building principals on, we'll certainly want to meet those needs. But part of it is getting it in, and this is part of the rationale too of rolling it out at those 2 buildings, is to really get in and see how often you need those, because the kits are actually bigger than what the teachers will need in that current year. So they'll last for at least a couple of years, most likely, before we even need to do a refresh of the consumables.
Yeah, I just don't want to see 3 years down the pike, teachers having to take money out of their pockets to
definitely
pay for the stuff.
And having been a principal in the district, if nothing else, we do a great job, I think, of having those extra supply rooms and things for teachers. And we've had multiple conversations with our principals on if there is that request that comes up, as long as it's in a timely manner, they're more than willing to provide those specific supplies that are needed if for some reason it's not provided from the district budget.
Ryan, I do have a question. You were just saying that you've been guided by leadership.
Yep.
To making these decisions. Who are you speaking of specifically when you say leadership?
So we did a couple activities with our building administrators, and then also with our teacher cadre group who did the piloting. So both groups we did different opportunities with each, and there were some screenshots of those in the presentation, but both groups kind of had their say, so to speak, on wants and desires, and then we kind of put it together from there.
Okay, so teachers as well as building administration have all touched this, and they've given their approval that they want to go with these directions?
Yeah, so principals we kind of did an overview for principals, and they had a demo login if they wanted to access, and then obviously talk to their teachers who were piloting. And then we had representatives from every grade, tried to split up among buildings for the actual piloting. And then our instructional coaches were also part of that too, and participated in the recommendation process along with the teachers.
And for those,
I appreciate that we as a district are moving towards encompassing everything. For so many years, we were English or language arts and math only, and now bringing these back in to give a more encompassed education, I think is super important. And I know our teachers have been doing that on their own, but now to provide that curriculum with it, I think is great. And hopefully, I don't give anything about state standard testing and things like that, but hopefully what we're teaching will encompass that into it as well. So
what I was going to say for the new board members, hadn't gone through a curriculum adoption. This is the same process that we use for any type of curriculum. You know, there's a committee gets together, looks what's out there, does their research. They, you know, go do some piloting, and it comes down to about the 3, and then they go talk to all their comrades. Okay, which is the best? And it comes on up to us to approve it by paying the bills for the thing, which is really involved.
Well, I've got a larger curriculum question is, with this being social studies and science, is it on the same curriculum update cycle as the others, or does this have a longer cycle?
So generally speaking, we go on 6 to 7 year cycles, depending on the product. And actually, Dr. Roth and our department had this conversation a couple months ago, is now that becomes more and more pressing and more timely because you're relying more on online licenses. So with Link Grant, we've kind of reshuffled some of those adoption cycles because ordinarily this year would have actually been our core ELA adoption, but with Link Grant in process, we obviously want to get through that, see where we're at in terms of materials before going through a full potential adoption or partial adoption thereof. So this gave us some flexibility this year to actually look at science and social studies because they are subjects in elementary that hadn't been addressed with as much meat in the past.
Right, and I appreciate that. That's really what I was getting at, was whether or not we were having a longer term investment into something we were buying into as a developed curriculum program. So it kind of goes back to what you said. Over that period of time that we're going to have this, they will be working with us for how long to continue to improve this curriculum?
So we built in, I believe, multiple professional development days for each. I want to say 3 off the top of my head, not having the quotes in front of me, to work with the companies actively. And that's just for in-person professional development. For each of the products and all the products that I've worked with so far since being down here, they actually will assign us a customer success manager type person who's not the salesperson, but they're more responsible for helping us work together. And if we have the need on, hey, we're not seeing how this part works, or we're trying to integrate this experiment and it's taking triple the amount of time you say, they can kind of brainstorm those even beyond formal professional development during implementation.
Well, for instance, in 2 years, if we think that we need more Kansas specific social studies integration into the format they've created, are they going to be available under the contract to help us improve that or modify what we bought from them?
Yeah, so that's, I mean, for Rozzy specifically, that's really been a big positive with them, is that because they're a smaller company, they really are looking to customize things. Now, do we have a contractual obligation that they have to produce X number of lessons that we request? No, not at this point. But social studies is very unique in that it's truly a state-specific set of standards. Science is the next generation science standards, so they're adopted across many states. So programs have made programs that align to that, whereas Kansas social studies standards, there's not a resource out there that's going to make truly a Kansas specific program, but this is one that will let us customize and make requests down the line, and they haven't put a cap on what that would look like in the years to come. But I think making that multi-year commitment, like you mentioned, will help in that, because that gives us a little leverage to say we're a partner with you. We want to build and grow together.
Right. Thank you.
Any further discussion? In that case, we'll need a motion for purchase of Rozzy Learning Company for 6-year access for a total of $27,000. And then for Twig Science, grade 6 for a 6-year adoption at Anthony Elementary and Leavenworth Warren Elementary, our intermediate center for an amount of $117,886.72 per elementary, and $38,816.50 for 6th grade, totaling $156,703.22.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Rozzy Learning Company Social Studies for $27,000 for the 6-year access, and for the Twig Science Program for a total of $156,703.22. This is encompassing the $117,886.72 for elementary and the $38,816.50 for 6th grade.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Mrs. Murphy and a second from Mrs. Wells. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise a hand. 7-0.
Thank you all. I appreciate it. Have a great evening.
And for the new board members, that these prices for a new curriculum adoption are not, unique. That's pretty close when you do a new adoption.
Yeah.
Very expensive.
I think they're a little lower than what last one that we had.
Yeah, well, when you get to those core resources like your math and ELA, those go up even more. But obviously, science with having the kits is definitely can be a costly one. So I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much. Moving on, agenda item 6.1, consideration of resurfacing of the Warren Stadium parent parking area.
So for items 6 and 7, they kind of go together. We'll bring on Matt and Dave to answer any of the questions that you as a board may have. But again, we try to put as much as we possibly can in the content area to where you understand the processes and things that have been vetted before it comes to you.
Okay. We're waiting for Matt and Dave to come on. I share Mr. Powell's concern that the city's portion of that parking lot's going to look a lot like the parking lot at Walmart in a couple of years.
I think I'm on now.
Yes. Hello, Matt.
I don't know if Dave's on yet or not. I guess you can.
I'm here. I'm not getting a picture.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome.
Are there questions that we can answer for the board?
I got a picture.
Matt, I do have one question. Since we're not physically in the buildings, when do they anticipate doing the work on the lots?
Dave, I think, can answer that question. I think it's later this or early summer, but Dave, if you have that.
It's probably going to be early summer as soon as we get if you guys select to take the bids that we got, I will call the winners of each bid and see when they want to schedule them. I'd like to do them as soon as we possibly can, but it'll be up to their scheduling.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. And we've gone ahead and moved some of the other projects we'd scheduled for the summer up. I think Matt's crew is already working on the cafeteria. Warren, is that correct, Matt?
Yeah, so Warren, we've already moved some of the projects, like you said. The kitchen has been cleaned out and advancing that for construction. The cafeteria space is being used for storage of some goods. And Dr. Roth, Jake and I have been talking with construction companies to try to advance what we can and get a little head start.
Okay, so Matt and company have been doing a good job since we're not in the buildings, actually getting some stuff done so that when we go back in late July, early August, knock on wood, we can, we'll have everything straight. So any further discussions about the resurfacing of Warren?
Yeah, I have a question. Is this project, was it projected maintenance or is this an unscheduled budget item?
So
over the past couple of years, since we've been putting more salt and sand, because that's what the city switched over to, we've seen some more holes developing, a lot of more spider cracks, as I call them, or spider web looking cracks on the surface. If we do the 2-inch mill, we should take care of almost all of the deterioration. There are some spots that we've gone through and filled in with cold patch, which they'll grind out, fix the hole, which might be a little bit deeper than the 2 inches. And then we'll go back over with a 2-inch overlay of asphalt, which will give us, I'm hoping, another 20 years.
Okay, well, I guess it's a broader question is because we know this is going to happen. And particularly this case, as you said, we switched to a material that contributes to a faster decline in the surface. are we looking at all of our, because I know we're doing pavement now at the high school. We have done this project. Do we kind of have a standing pecking order of the surfaces that we are going to have to deal with in our budgets and in our budget forecasting? So when we come up to budget in June and July, are we kind of going to see, well, not this year, but next year and in 3 years and in 4 years, do we kind of have a layout for this exact same kind of thing based on your all's assessment of the condition of our surfaces?
And I would say for Matt, he does that. He's got a spreadsheet that takes it out not only 5 years in pretty good detail, but longer. This is not really very bad. Just wait until he gets to talk to you on roofs.
Right. Yeah, we talked to him about some of that.
Yeah. So Mr. Powell, if I could, I believe I know where you're going with the question. You've talked to me in the past about what's forecasted. So annually, as Mr. Darling mentioned, I do have funds set aside for asphalt repair and concrete repair. Dave and I work closely on those projects, and then Dave takes those out to bid. So we had some money that will cover this set aside for asphalt and concrete across the district. We carry about $80,000 a year just for general repairs of sidewalks and parking lots. So this project specifically was not identified early on, but we anticipate that type of spend each year for repairs. This one advanced because of some concerns for safety. And as Mr. Stoka had mentioned, a decline of that surface being used more this past year for parking, salt treatment, and those type of things. So we always, as those projects pop up because of safety concerns, we do advance those a little bit ahead and they take priority. To answer your second question regarding the pecking order, the second item that we have on tonight is a slurry coat, separate standalone item from this one. And that will help extend the life of our parking lots. And what we're looking at there are parking lots that will be approaching the 10-year mark from the last construction process. That is an effort to continue extending that. Again, Mr. Stoka and I visit and we try to anticipate what needs attention and when that needs attention, so we don't get hit with a complete replacement of a parking lot, which would be much more expensive. I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Yeah, it does. No, I appreciate it. Just one last question, just so I'm clear. The area that you portrayed in the diagram is all that we're going to deal with. So we will have our surface, and then the cities is going to look like whatever the cities is going to look like in that same parking area. Is that correct?
Yes, that would be correct. That blue shaded area that I provided you. Now the city side is not treated as often as ours. So it's not in as bad a shape, but it is on its way. And we are trying to work with the agents there that we would to make sure that they were aware of that whole opportunity and working with them.
No, thank you. Appreciate it.
And if you remember, Mr. Kramer, when he did the city report at that last meeting, we were able to actually have talked about that they're throwing a lot more money this year into their city street projects, but this wasn't one of their street projects that they were going to take care of. So all goes into. So any further discussion?
Yeah, I got a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
In the past, we've had, to me, in my mind, a few issues with some of the concrete specs. Are you writing the specs for the mix, Dave, or?
I'm pulling all the specs right out of the city. I had the city send me over their specs, so we're going with the same specs as the city does.
On the mix?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, that's good.
Okay, I need a motion.
Do you want separate motions, one for 6 and one for 7 for the
Yes.
slurry? Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve the resurfacing of the Warren Stadium to go with the contract bid. Trying to see this tiny
From
font.
approved paving.
For approved paving, I'm trying to find the lower figure that we have here
Amount is $62,575.
for 62,700 and
No, $575.
$5. And that's with approved paving.
Okay, we got a motion.
I second it.
Okay, we'll let Mr. Carney second it. All those in favor, raise a hand. That's 7-0. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 7, consideration of Surrey seal and crack repair. Basically the same thing, and I think Matt's already talked about it. Any questions?
Mr. President, I make a motion that the board approve the consideration of Surrey seal and crack repair as briefed by Mr. Dedeke.
From Mr. McConnell, it's the amount of $22,568.
In the amount of $22,568 from McConnell and Associates.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion from Mr. Powell and a second from Mrs. Murphy. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise a hand. 7-0. Thank you, Matt. And
Yep. Thank you.
okay, now the infamous 8.1 consideration 2020-2021 Internet E-rate application.
So this was what we were actually going to do the
Special
special
meeting.
meeting on. And so Brian provided those numbers. This is an annual, Beth and Brian, and it was Kevin and Brian before, that would bring this to before the board. And this is just federal dollars that flow through for our internet connections, as well as other technology needs that is covered under E-rate as well. So there's questions we can bring Brian on. It's up to you as a board.
Okay.
I think it's all pretty self-explanatory. I'm really shocked that considering Spectrum's been in the area for as long as it has, couldn't have done better for a bid for us. Other than that, I would like, if there's no other discussion or questions, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve the expenditure of $59,700 for our internet provider, being the Networks of America.
You got a second from, or excuse me, a motion from Mrs. Murphy, a second from who?
Jack.
Jack. Mr. Right, any further discussion? Raise the right hand if you're in favor. Got 7-0. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item number 9, consideration of health insurance broker.
So as I shared with you in the briefing, that it will be our recommendation come July to go to from Marsh and McLennan, who's done a fine job for us, to Hayes Company. Basically, it comes down to what Hayes Company can provide in analytical data throughout the process that would give us an opportunity to gauge better what we're using in a plan, what's not being used in a plan, and then be able to devise a plan that more meets the needs, plus get a better understanding budgetary wise moving forward. And they do a very extensive job with that analytical data and the communication piece. And again, we have nothing that Marsh McLennan had done. They were outstanding vendors for us, but felt like this would be an opportunity to give them a different opportunity, not only to us to analyze that, but another vendor as well.
And this is just informational right now, correct?
Well, we'd like go ahead and have a motion to approve going ahead and moving with that. And then in July, when we do all of it will be on there more as a formality at that time.
Okay. Thank
I'd
you.
like-
Need a motion to switch health insurance broker?
Like to make a motion to switch to Hayes Company for our healthcare broker. healthcare insurance broker.
We have a motion to switch brokers,
Second,
Marsh McLennan to Hayes from Mr. Murphy. Do we have a second?
second,
All right, is there any further discussion? All those in favor, raise a hand. 7-0. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 10.1, consideration of continuous learning plan memorandum of understanding.
This just really is allowing us to do the continuous learning plan with our Teachers Association. Miss Riddle and Miss Sloan's done a nice job working together. I believe we had 83%. What'd you say?
She said they had 96% voted yes, 64 of the teachers responded.
Miss Riddle reported to Miss Sloan there was 96% of our teachers that voted that were in favor of the memorandum of understanding. This is just basically allowing us to adjust to the continuous learning plan.
I want to be very thankful to Sloan, Mrs. Riddle, and everybody who worked on this, because this shows that people are not locked into what used to be, but are reacting and willing to work outside the box at this once in a century event type thing. So any further discussion? I need a motion to approve the MOU.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we got Mr. Carney made the motion and Mrs. Murphy seconded. Any further discussion? If not, raise a hand. 7-0. Okay, superintendent's report.
I have one thing prior to just for informational purposes from the board. We have when we were all meeting together, the board elected to do a special meeting on April 20th. Is that something that you want to do, and that content something that you would like to do via the Zoom meeting, or would you rather postpone those special board meetings until we can all be together in a room?
How critical is it, Mike?
This was for informational requested by the board, just to keep the board up to date on different happenings throughout the district. This would be, at this point in time, it was presentation from Miss Knight and the high school. Primarily, this meeting was going to be focused around the mental health and the grant that we received in partnership with the state and the guidance center. So that's what this one was more geared to. But at that time, that was when we were all meeting in person and under one roof. We can still do it if that's the direction the board would like to go. I just want to remind you that that was on the 20th, and we could start planning one way or the other based on what you as a board decide this evening.
Mr. Chair, while I know we're not taking a formal vote at this point, I personally would like to see us get updated on what happened, because much of what we were going to learn had already taken place before this event, this tragedy that we've had ongoing occurred. And more importantly, timing wise, we're getting near the end of the time when we can talk to parents and we can give them information they need to know going into a vote that's going to happen in August, regardless of this crisis.
Well, Mike, maybe I didn't hear you. I thought you said April 20th.
Well, that was next Monday was when the special board meeting would take place. And
March, yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Carney, it's March 20th, or yeah, April 20th. We are in April.
But we're looking at being together as a group or back?
No.
No, it would be Zoom like this.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought you said somebody get together as a group.
I said if we wanted to wait.
Well, that's why I asked if it was critical. I like being in a room with people. This is kind of not my bag, I guess, but I love technology, but not like this as far as meetings go.
Just gotta need to be an introvert like me. And then you-
Okay,
So,
whatever the board wants to do, it's fine, but I just,
want to continue on the 20th then?
Yeah, because Mr. Powell's comment that it's important that we get this information out there because there will be a vote in some fashion that's currently scheduled for August for people to agree to tax themselves for this. So it's kind of an important thing to me, I think.
Okay.
So my question is, if we have this special board meeting, will it be recorded and be sent out to the public? Because our special board meetings usually are not, and it would be important that this information be available. How the mental health aspect of it does impact our kids, and the progress that we've made so far just with the funding that we've been able to get on our own.
Yes, it will be recorded and we can share that like we currently do on YouTube.
Okay, knowing that, I say yes, we go forward and Ms. Knight give us all of the good information that she has available as to why we need to continue the mental health programs that we have and can grow it.
Well, I think it's even more important because my understanding of adolescence, having survived my own early, is that there's a lot of stress on adolescents, and this environment we're currently in is actually causing more stress.
Yes, it is.
So I don't have.
so Doug, it's your call on the special session, right? So
Well, I would like to have members of the board there, but yes, I would like to
okay,
hear, if you guys thought it. I'm in favor of having one. So, Dr. Roth, I think you can count that much on your both hands, right?
Yep, got it. We'll continue as planned. Just wanted to bring that to the board's attention.
And it'll be strictly an informational on mental health and no other discussion.
It'll be just dialogue, yep, back and forth.
Dialogue back and forth. And after we see what McKnight has to say, so.
Yep, and so then my last thing I have is we're getting ready to show you a video. I think it's pretty powerful. Jake did a nice job putting it together and visiting with our each building's Teacher of the Year candidate. It's going to be about a 15-minute video, and it shares some of the challenges that they've seen in our continuous learning plan, but also they share some successes, and I think that's pretty powerful for you as a board to hear that, and that will wrap up my superintendent's report.
I have one question ahead of time. Have we gotten in contact with every student now? Because about 10 days ago, there were some schools that we hadn't gotten 100% of yet.
Right. We met today as brought all the admin together via Zoom today, principals and assistant principals throughout the district, as well as directors. And we're still not 100% of contact, but it's not because we haven't reached out or tried. And so some of our principals now are going to go door to door to families that haven't reached back out to us. And so that process is still ongoing. And we talked today that families or students that haven't made an effort, they still under the compulsory attendance law. So truancy still could come into play in this. And so just because the learning model has changed compared to what we were prior to spring break, the expectation of learning still being available and taking advantage of that availability is still the responsibility of the families within our school district.
Yeah, I'm sure for some reasons.
well,
Homelessness.
we're going to talk more about this, right? We're going to talk more about this, or
Yeah, are we going to talk more about this? This is.
We could talk all night. It's your guys. It's your meeting.
It's our meeting.
I have a little problem with the truancy part. I mean, how are you going to enforce that? I mean, what's going to dictate that?
if they're not making an effort to respond to teachers or check in or call the office and verify why they're not doing that, they still have an obligation to educate their kid, just like if it was a brick and mortar. And that's not our rule. That's not something that Mike Rose said all of a sudden. This is what's being told to us from our State Board of Education through our Commissioner of Education.
Okay, but so if we got a sophomore staying home by himself every day, so we're gonna, somebody's gonna contact the parent that he's not doing.
We're going to send out a letter
Okay.
to parents to identify that Mike Roth hasn't been in class for the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. If no one reports back to us by such and such time, we'll turn it over to the county attorney as truant. Now what they do with it is totally up to them, but the process for us, or the expectation for us from the state of it, the Kansas State Department of Education, is to follow that.
Okay, well, as long as we do our job, I mean, I think it's gonna be ugly myself. I hope not, but.
Well, and that gets to
Well-
my question, which is, our job is to give a child an opportunity for the future by providing them a level of proficiency. And I think that our district and our leaders and administrators have worked their tails off to try to make this work. But I guess the question comes down to, and maybe it's fodder for a future special board meeting, not too far down the road, but what do we do with students who don't make a minimum proficiency cut by the time school traditionally is over? We still have a responsibility to get them ready for the next year or to send them out into the world. So,
And that's part of this continuous learning plan and communication with teachers. We're over 90% compliant as a district as far as reaching the number of students that we have. We're still working on that 10%, but it takes an effort both ways. Not to bring alarm to anybody, not to predict what the future may or may not look like, but there's no guarantee with how things are going to ebb and flow with this pandemic that we start on time, or that it's not interrupted sometime next year due to this. And if we don't follow through now and set expectations and have what we're doing validated not only by our staff, but also by the students and their families, we're in for a bigger struggle as this may linger on. My fingers are crossed that this is the only time that we have to do this. But just like anything else, this prepares us for future opportunities to learn, but it also prepares us for future opportunities to deal with crisis situations that are out of our control. And so our instruction from Dr. Watson has been to have that expectation that even though this model is different than what they're used to, the expectation of participation and the opportunity to learn still should be there.
So I think it's super important that we make 100% contact with all these families to ensure and to put our teachers' minds at rest. Because I know that we've got those teachers that their heart and soul are in each one of these kids because they're their kids and they're not there to give them that daily hug and let them know that they're loved and cared about, to make sure that those kids are okay. We need to go door to door and make sure that somebody sees that they're okay if their families are not checking in. So we need.
well, I would offer Danielle the same thing, is that we shouldn't just leave this to the teachers. At a certain point, we need to bring all of the forces to bear to reach out and find out what's going on with these kids. Because I know there's teachers right now that I've talked to that they've tried and tried and tried to get a hold of a parent and have been unable. That's why I think that our staff and our educators are doing a great job in this challenge. But I have no problem bringing in law enforcement or others just to go to the door, knock on the door and say, what's going on? How we doing? Where's your child?
Yeah, I absolutely do not want our teachers having to go to those doors because you don't know what's behind those doors or what's been happening behind those doors. And I don't want them put at any sort of risk, even if it's just 1/10%. I don't want them at risk for catching something because they went to the door, or meeting a hostile situation because they went to the door. That is something for law enforcement and a truant officer to handle, not an educator. That's
And
just
this-
my personal belief.
This needs to be handled just like we would handle any other regular situation. If there's a child that's not coming to school, we move it up the next rung on the ladder and have them deal with it. So I think Dr. Roth is right. He's doing it the right way. So I think we just need to give it more time and keep on trying.
Our teachers have done a phenomenal job with what they've been given and the communication, and you'll see in this video some of the excitement and that they've shared with us in this process. But our admin, our building principals, they're doing the follow up and doing things as well. And so it's definitely a collaborative effort, because this is unique to all of us, and we're going to continue to grow. And we're going to grow in the right direction because of this. So my hat's off to the entire staff of USD 453, because we have a bunch of rock stars when it comes to what they're able to do with kids in the time frame that they were able to do it in.
Okay, I think we can see the video now.
Is that gonna be a full screen? I guess it is. All right. Whoa. Is there gonna be sound?
We're working on the sound.
Okay.
Jake's going to start it over here. We did test this.
Starting the video out with Kelsey. I like it.
So with younger kids, it's some of the cons may have been, they're struggling to get on initially, or they may have multiple kids in the house and they're all using the same device. And
Yeah.
All right.
So with younger kids, it's a little more difficult for them to get on and connect by themselves. So we've had a lot of parent interaction with that. Some of the cons may have been, they're struggling to get on initially, or, they may have multiple kids in the house and they're all using the same device. And so it was, kicking them off, and then they had to get another kid on with the codes. And so we're constantly sending codes, and we found some parents to be frustrated through that process. However, I think as a team, we did a really good job of continually reaching out and making sure that we were connecting with them and kind of coaching them through the process and letting them know that this is something new and we're all doing this together. Don't worry about if you can get on today, or if you don't complete it today, it'll always be there. There will be many more Zooms that you can get on. So I think, technology wise, maybe kind of started out as a con, but it's given us an extra opportunity to connect with parents. And with our kiddos, I'll never forget the first time we got on Zoom last week, and they all got to see each other. I mean, I was almost in tears because of how happy they were to just see each other. They had no idea what Zoom was. And so that was really awesome to see our kids connecting with each other on Zoom, and to still be just as excited over technology and seeing each other through the camera than being in class. And then when it comes to their activities on Seesaw, it's been cool to see their creativity. Some kids choose to use their voice more. Some kids choose to do a picture every single time. Some kids choose to do a video. And so I think they've all found creativity within how they're choosing to complete the activities. Another thing that we've kind of run into is we co-teach in kindergarten, so we share all 40 kids. And so on the teaching side of it, we have to be in constant communication. We were in constant communication when we were at school, and that was so much easier to do because we were face to face. And so I think that's been one of our has continued to be a big challenge for us, but to just constantly communicate on the teacher side of it, because we are still constantly working together all day, every day. But it has, made our team a whole lot better in the end as well. So
I think the hardest part for me, I think I was more, especially when the idea came out, I was super skeptical and nervous about how I was going to reach kids through Zoom or some kind of online format, whenever over half my kids the majority of my kids have huge communication delays already. A few of them are nonverbal. It's hard enough in the classroom when I'm physically with them to get them to be attentive sometimes, just with the various disabilities and abilities that they have. So I think that was what was my initial, what am I going to do? With the population of kids that I work with, it's already, like I said, it's hard enough at school. So that was it's still been kind of crazy. But I mean, and I have a student teacher right now, so that's kind of been nice to have someone to bounce ideas off of and things like that to help. But it's not been as bad as I thought. I will say that. I think some of the positives in it is when I do get to get online and Zoom with my kids, it's nice to see and be able to communicate also and have the parent right there too, whether they're in the screen or just in the room. It's nice that the parents can see kind of the relationship that the student and I have, and then also kind of what the student's capable of too. So that's always fun to see.
I think that the hardest part of all of this is taking everything that we always do as individuals and bringing them all together at the same time. I know for myself, I can walk into my classroom and I can be a rock star teacher, and I can go home and I can be a rock star mom, and I can go onto the soccer field and I can be a rock star coach, and I can clean house and I can cook and I can do everything, but they're all individual. And what's happening now is families they have to do everything all at one time. And so I think that has been the biggest struggle, at least for me, but I'm noticing that with my families too. But on a positive note, what I have noticed is I've noticed a change in my kids. Even the parents will tell me that their children are helping cook dinner now, and their children are reading to their siblings because maybe there's just nothing else to do. I don't know. But they're getting out and they're helping with yard work when it's warm, and they're helping fold laundry, and I don't know, it's bringing families closer together. One thing that I have noticed is when we first handed out Chromebooks, I thought that I was going to watch iBoss and see my kids on YouTube all day long. I thought they would play games, and so I thought was going to be the biggest struggle, but they're not. What I'm finding is that less and less of them are logging on at all. They log in and they get their assignments done, and then they go off, which I think is bringing that family togetherness. Now they're forced to be together, and so they're starting to want to be together. I think that parents are learning a lot more about technology and how to help their kids. I've talked to some parents who are doing science lessons at home. Every day at 3:45 on my Zoom, we do a science lesson with things that our kids can find at the house. Dish soap, eggs, whatever. And I'm having kids email me and parents email me. They're finding random learning opportunities around their house. They're, doing science experiments and sending them to me, which is really great. Some of my kids are growing gardens and want to share with their classmates. And I don't know. I think that this is stressful, but I think that we have a really, really great opportunity to connect with families the way we never could before. Because now I can have a one-on-one Zoom meeting with parents and their children, and I can walk families through what their kids do every single day. So it's scary out there, but this is an amazing opportunity for us to grow as people and as families and as educators and learners.
Sure, but it has been very challenging because at the midst of all this, my mother was taken into the hospital for breathing problems and spent a week and a half in ICU. So we were dealing with that. My daughter is a frontline nurse and her husband is a police officer. So in the midst of getting ready for all of this, I've also become a full-time grandparent to a 5-year-old and an 18-month-old. So I feel that I'm seeing what a lot of our parents are, that maybe I wouldn't have quite understood as much because I'm trying to homeschool the 5-year-old while doing my job. What I saw, it was when we went into the building to pack up and get things ready, it was the saddest thing. But then seeing our kids as they came through and seeing their faces and how excited they were to see us just really brought home why we do this again, to see that we have that impact. Every student that came through, they were excited to see us. They were excited to get their things from school. It's been a learning curve, and I know that it's probably going to continue to be a learning curve. Each day we're going to find new ways to reach our students. We started off with packets, did some surveys with our parents, and packets seemed to be the way that some of them wanted to go. But as we're getting into this and learning, they're getting more familiar with Zoom, getting more familiar with Seesaw, getting more familiar. Max would always be fun, but as we're doing that, I'm seeing that learning curve of where they felt like they had to have the packets. We're kind of moving towards more of an online. I see that the parents are, the most important thing I think right now is that my parents know they can reach me at any time. I've given my phone number, I have Remind, we have Seesaw, they have my email. And I have spent days when Zoom wasn't working, I FaceTimed with some of my students. When Zoom wasn't working, I sent out some new things through Remind. And I've had many phone calls, and I think that the most important thing and the thing that I've seen through this is that everybody has learned to be even more flexible than you already are as a teacher, because you have to be. And I think that all of us are learning new ways to reach our students. And some of those days on my office hours, I have students come in, not because they need help with their activities that they're doing, but more just because they want that interaction and they just want to talk. I've had one child gets on quite frequently just to chat. And so I think that the students, it's hard on them, but I think they're finding through talking with all of my colleagues that we're all there and they know that. And so they feel safe even in this, unusual time that they're going through.
So I spent, a couple of Saturdays so that kids can come back and get their stuff. In our building, the people that are still there have been more than willing to run back to the classroom, look for that horn that doesn't have a name tag, even though I have said a billion times, make sure yours has a name tag, so that kids have stuff to work on. I have, and teachers everywhere, have researched online opportunities for kids, and I was fortunate in that there are some things that are already in place. Like there's a program called Smart Music, which works a lot like private lessons, and it grades the kids as they progress, which means 1, they don't have to wait for me to assign something, and 2, I may have 40 kids in a class, but they don't all 40 have to have the same assignment. And in that respect, I like it a lot. In that I can take the flute player that didn't play as well as my first year flute player and still give her assignments that are adequate and challenging to where she is to build her to where I want her to be, and one that is not playing at an 8th grade level. Great, Smart Music will put you where you belong and help you continue. And then if they have the questions, they Zoom and we figure out how to make it work. The only thing I would say that we miss is that whole collaboration thing, because music band in general is a collaborative effort. You know, when you are preparing a piece, you are looking for balance and what part has the melody and where you come in and how you make music be this piece that the composer envisioned. And that is hard to do without significant technology. You know, we've seen the online things where you have 20 people on a screen and you're all singing together and they make it look really easy. But I'm telling you, in that background somewhere, there's somebody with a metronome, you know, or a clicker, so that everybody is playing the same thing at the same time, even though they're not all together. And then somebody else on the outside is balancing those parts, because you can't balance parts online. You know, it's something that somebody's doing as they're putting this video together. So would I want to do this all the time? Only if I were a private lesson instructor would it be valid to do it all the time. But for what we're working with now, it is really heartening to know that especially if kids are, you know, in it to win it, they are able to progress and progress at the speed that they are capable of progressing, without my necessarily looking over their shoulder, which for some kids is really, really freeing. Well, a couple that I'm having a hard time keeping up with. Yeah, it is extraordinarily freeing.
So I think the biggest shift was like looking at how the classroom ran versus the expectations of how they can run this at home and how I can just maintain their skills. So one of the things I always like try to impart with my students as we went into this, if you sat on the couch for 8 weeks and then I ask you to run a 5K at the end of it, it's going to be so painful. But if you just kind of maintain the skill, walk, run, you know, just keep going, running that 5K won't be a problem if you just keep working out. And that's our goal, is to just keep you moving through these skills that are going to come back next year and the year after that and the year after that. So just not losing all of that. I really enjoyed digging into what I do and looking at what's the most important, how do I dial it down, and how do I make it accessible to all students at home. I think one of the biggest things we'll take away from this are the haves and the have-nots. As much as we would like to say that our education system is equitable, looking at this situation makes it very clear as to who has more resources and who doesn't. And just trying to make it equal for everyone, or like so that everyone has an opportunity to be successful, has been a huge challenge. Even with packets and Zoom and videos and more supplemental things, what a teacher is able to do in the classroom is just astounding. You start to realize how many things you adjust as you're teaching that you have to think about beforehand when you're trying to turn this all over to them. So I was homeschooled for 8 years of my life. So having that background, I think really helped me in this process, because I was like, oh, okay, like how can I like outline this in a way, because I was the kid who, you know, just wanted to do all of my English and then I didn't want to do anything else. So I would just do it absolutely what I had to do in math and then science and all the others. And so designing a curriculum where they could self-pace. And so like my curriculum right now, they have 4 weeks in their classroom. So the kids who, and I told them up front, I was like, if you're overwhelmed, go to week 1 and week 1 only, and only look at that. If you're bored or excited because you can work through things, keep moving on. And I have a kid who's on week 3. And so she'll contact me about what's going on and, you know, how to work through it. So I really liked being able to step back and look at, okay, how do I make my curriculum accessible? And how do I push the kids who need to be pushed? And how do I bring it way back to the kids who just need a safety net?
So as you can see, the teachers and that process is very beneficial to us, because we got great feedback from outstanding teachers. And so I was excited to share that with you as a board.
Oh, thank you. I think we all enjoyed seeing that, and since, you know, hearing some of the challenges that the teachers are having to face and deal with every day. makes it a little bit more real to us that are on the front lines. So, appreciate that. Any further questions?
So have we gotten most of the issues ironed out with Zoom? I know that there was an issue with it a week or so ago.
We met, like I said, we met it this morning as a group, and none of the principals identified anything like that in the last 8 to 10 days. Once we did the reset at the high school, it seems to be much better for them and us as a district. And so, you know, we'll deal with those challenges as they come up. But Mr. Harrod and Miss Batson and Mr. Bodensteiner, they did a great job working together. Laura probably her and Brian spent countless hours trying to make sure that they could test and retest this process. And we feel pretty good at where we're at. Will something else possibly pop up? Yes. And if it does, we'll deal with that. But Brian and his crew and the teaching and learning crew have really done a nice job helping secure and finding ways to make this as secure as possible.
All right. Thank you very much. Now we go on to executive session for non-elected personnel. And how long are we going to need?
Well, I figured you might want to figure 5 minutes in just to make sure everyone gets connected. The phone number and the dial in information was sent to you. So keep that secure. And so Amy and I thought maybe 15 minutes to start with.
Okay. We'll need a motion to go into executive session for 20 minutes or so. We'll probably have to just make it
Mr.
till
President, I
8
move we
o'clock.
That'd be fine.
executive session to discuss non-elected personnel pursuant to the exception under the Kansas Open Meetings Act in order to protect the privacy interest of the individual or individuals to be discussed, that we will return to this open session in 20 minutes, which that would bring us to 7:56. We will invite Dr. Roth, Amy Sloan, and one of our board attorneys, Robert Hengela, Amy Schuring, Henry Thomas, or Kate Gellen.
It'll be Robert this evening, and also Beth will join us for a little bit.
And Beth.
All right, we got a motion. Can we have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Goodman. All those in favor, raise a hand. Mike Carney, you going to go into executive session?
I think Mike's having some issues.
Mike, you're still muted.
Yeah, you're still muted. Unmute.
This is Mike Pell. My video's off, but I think I have my audio and my hand's raised.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
Mike, we can hear you.
Holiday, we can't see Mike Carney though. I can see him, but
Maybe have somebody give him a call. Maybe he's
Mr.
off
Carney,
audio.
can you hear Mr. Carney? Wave if you can hear us.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, good. He can hear us.
So he can,
The
he can
screen
vote.
says that you're muted, Mike. See if you're muted. Now you're unmuted.
okay, now you're not muted. Okay, you in favor of going into executive session for,
With a short break.
Mr. Darling,
Okay,
do you want
short
to
break.
extend that? Can we extend that to 8 o'clock with
Yeah,
the delay?
I
Let's just
was gonna see if we could amend that motion and just switch it to 8 o'clock because we've already lost a couple of minutes.
all right. And got a motion, got a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Goodman. All those in favor, raise a hand.
This is Mike
Okay.
Pell. Aye.
Aye, okay, great. 7-0.
I'm speaking my hand.
Yeah, we're gonna go mute and then call in. So.
And you don't have to exit this. Jake will take care of everything on his end to mute. And so if you don't have to leave the room or you don't want to leave the room, you don't have to.
Okay, well, I have to. So,
But we are calling in on the telephone, correct?
Oh, that's right. You're on the phone.
That's correct, Mr. Goodman. You will call in on the phone.
Yeah, I'm still in here. Okay. All right, there's 4 of us. Okay,
I'm here. I just can't be somebody's turned off my visual.
my
I
bad.
like,
We need to mute our phones if we're going to be unmuted.
yeah, difficult than not.
Okay, I've muted mine. So,
I've muted mine.
all right.
Okay.
We need a
You
minute.
have to select your video for those that haven't shown up.
We
Well,
only
we
need
got the-
4 to make a
We
motion.
only 4 and we got 5, so.
I make a motion that we continue our executive session by 10 more minutes, coming back here at 8:11.
I second.
Got a motion, a second. All those in favor? I'm raising my hand. That makes it 5-0. So thank
So
you.
Mr. Goodman and Mr. Carney did not come in. Okay, very good.
Yes. All right, so let's go ahead and mute us again.
Can you hear me?
Yes. I can hear you, Elisa.
Okay, I can hear.
I'd like
All
to make a motion that we extend for another 10 minutes and meet back in here at 8:21.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion from Mrs. Murphy and a second from Mrs. Price. All those in favor, raise a hand. I'm raising my,
Aye.
so it's
I'm raising my
5-0.
hand.
Oh, okay. Let's go back.
I can't start my camera for some reason.
All right. We're back out of executive session now.
I'd like to make a motion to extend for 5 more minutes to the time of 8:26.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion, a second to extend. Raise your hand. I'm raising my hand.
I'm saying aye.
Okay, 5-0. Thank you. Okay, Jake, we need to go back. And Jake, turn my video on again.
Yeah, I can't get my video either.
Jake's got the board. Okay. We'll start my video. There I am.
There we
Okay, I'm on, but I cannot start my video because the host has stopped it.
Oh,
I
he's
promise
turning.
I'm dressed. There we
There
go.
you
Okay, Mike is back on, but he hadn't turned on his speaker yet.
How's that?
Now you're on. All right, we're back in executive, or back from.
Now I can't hear anybody.
Can't see it.
Okay, Mr. President, I would like to make a motion to approve the staffing report as presented to us in our executive session.
Second,
Have a second?
Judy, you're muted.
Yeah.
On
now
now.
she's not- Okay, Mrs. Murphy made a motion to accept the staff report as presented, and Mrs. Price, I believe, seconded it. Although she was muted at the time, but we can read lips. Modern technology. So any further discussion?
Can you all hear me? Because I can't hear anybody.
I can
Yeah.
hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. All
We can
those in favor, raise a hand.
John, we can hear you.
We can hear you, Jack, but you can't hear us?
Want to message you?
Yeah.
He's the computer guy.
Yeah. Go to messaging.
Do we have that option? So is that a 6-0 or a 6-1 then?
Well, let me hold up a message to him.
Want me to? We can call him.
Okay, vote. He said vote for it, so it's 7-0.
7-0.
Yep.
All right, Mr. President, I move to give the superintendent the discretion to give essential staff that are required to report to work to the district facility because they cannot perform their job from home up to an extra $3 per hour as pandemic pay. This amount will end at the end of this pandemic and be determined by the board and or the superintendent. As part of this motion, the board gives the superintendent the discretion to, one, identify different groups of employees that are eligible to receive the pandemic pay, and two, the amount of pandemic pay to be given to each group of employees.
We're sorry, your call cannot be complete.
Okay, we've had a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion by Mrs. Murphy, a second by Mrs. Price. All those wanting to vote for it, raise your hand. Okay. We have 7-0.
Doug,
Yeah.
Abstained.
she's abstained.
Oh, excuse me, 6-0. I thought you raised your hand.
Sorry.
I think, and the reason you abstained is potential for conflict of interest on your part.
Correct.
It's not 6-0. It's not 6-0.
6-1.
It's 6-1.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
I would walk out of the room if I could, but I can't.
well, you turn off, leave the meeting, but that'd be hard to get back into. So we understand why you voted no in this case. So, all right, moving on to,
Mr. President, in regard to the resolution and non-renewal of a non-tenured teacher's contract, Resolution 19-20-020, whereas Karina Tuttle is currently employed in Unified School District of 453 Leavenworth County, Kansas, whereas the Board of Education of said Unified District number 453 Leavenworth County, Kansas, finds that the contract of Karina Tuttle should be non-renewed and that Karina Tuttle should be given notice on or before May 15th, 2020 of the intent of the Board of Education to non-renew her contract. Now therefore be resolved by the Board of Education of the Unified School District of 453 Leavenworth County, Kansas as follows. It is hereby declared the intent of the Board of Education of the Unified District number 453 Leavenworth County, Kansas, that the employment contract of Karina Tuttle as a teacher of non-renewed for the 2021 school year, and the clerk of the Board of Education is directed to give written notice in person or by restricted United States mail to Karina Tuttle on or before May 15, 2020, of the board's intent to non-renew this contract for the 2021 school year, adopted by the Board of Education, District 453, Leavenworth County, Kansas, the 13th day of April, 2020.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a, from Mrs. Murphy? Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second from Mrs. Wells. All those in favor, raise a hand. We have 7-0. Thank you.
Mr. President, I have resolution in regard to non-renewal of a non-tenured teacher's contract, resolution 1920-019. Whereas David Perez is currently employed in the Unified School District number 453, Leavenworth County, Kansas, and whereas the Board of Education of said Unified District 453, Leavenworth County, Kansas, finds the contract of David Pretz should be non-renewed, and that David Pretz should be given written notice on or before May 15, 2020, of the intent of the Board of Education to non-renew his contract for the 2020-21 school year. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of Unified School District number 453, Leavenworth County, Kansas as follows. It is hereby declared to be the intent of the Board of Education of the Unified School District number 453, Leavenworth County, Kansas, that the employment contract of David Pretz as a teacher be non-renewed for the 2020-21 school year, and the clerk of the Board of Education is directed to give written notice in person or by restricted United States mail to David Pretz on or before May 15, 2020, of the board's intent to non-renew the contract for the 2020-21 school year, adopted by the Board of Education of the Unified School District of 453, Leavenworth County, Kansas, the 13th day of April, 2020.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion by Mrs. Murphy and a second by Mr. Carney. All those in favor, raise a hand. 7-0. And I do need to point out that Mrs. Schumacher is going to have to send us all the DocuSign thing to take care of. So please take care of that as fast as you can. Appreciate that. All right, moving on to agenda item 14, community information minutes for Leavenworth County Commission, or City Commission, sorry, for the 25th of February and the 10th of March is attached. Leavenworth County Commission for the March 2020 is attached. Then upcoming meeting dates. There's 3 of them listed on there. Agenda item 15. The 11th is a board meeting, although we are going to have to add one on the 20th, next Monday, for a board meeting. Memorial Day and the June 8th board meeting. Because of our unique way of doing it, we cannot have patron input tonight. So we're going to go ahead and start with board member comments. Mr. Carney.
Yes, I am. I'd just like to say that my grandchildren were fortunate that my wife was a teacher in the district for over 30 years. She's been with them every day. And one of the comments she made to me about what's going on with this system is that the teachers are being really flexible with what they can do and what my wife can do to ensure that the kids are getting all the education they can get. The only negative comment she had, and I didn't get a chance to go into detail because she just brought it up tonight, was the younger kids seem to have a problem with the Zoom aspect, at least with our grandkids, that age group, 4th graders. And so I don't know. I think that might just be a technical thing more than anything, but
I
other
think,
than that, I think it's going well, all things considered.
all right, thank you. Mr. Goodman.
Yeah. So I just want to point out that we've been doing a great job on keeping all the kids on and engaged in the Zoom. I know we've had our issues with it, but my kids have kind of taken to it like a duck to water. And I appreciate all the work that Mr. Harrod's put into this in making this all work. The only request that I would have is that a special request that the teachers of my kids in particular get a little bit more work because they're driving me crazy.
That's why the kids will be coming back to school as soon as they can because their parents will force them out of the house.
As soon as humanly possible. I'm home all day long. They're home all day long. I absolutely agree with the teacher though. I have seen, kind of a remarkable change in my kids at the very least. They have become, more family centric and helping each other out. And I hate to say it's kind of a silver lining in this whole deal that we've come together as a family. So this has actually been really good. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Mrs. Murphy.
Well, first, I want to go back to where we gave our superintendent the discretion on the pandemic pay. I cannot praise all of our staff and our educators enough for everything that they have been doing for us. We're all in uncharted waters right now. And of course, when you're in seas that you're not sure of, you're going to have sharks, but we're fortunate that we also have the dolphins to battle the sharks off. And our first, what I still call our first responders, our staff that is there serving food and taking care of our buildings and taking care of the technology so our students can continue their education, our frontline responders. And I can't say how much that we, put enough words, how much we really truly do appreciate them, because it's not an easy task. And I know a lot of us, me included, I wouldn't know how to do all this. My hair would already be laying on the floor somewhere. So that's not my forte. So we really appreciate all of our teachers and all of our staff and everyone that's come together to make all this work. Outside of that, I still believe this is probably one of the best school districts my children have ever been attended in. And one is actually still dual. So she still has classes evidently at 8:30 in the morning at both schools at the same time. We're still figuring out those logistics there, but we'll get it figured out. I just see more amazing things coming in. I do know this will not last forever. We will be back on a course and it will be to some sense of normalcy. We just have to have faith in that. And I know we will all be wiser and smarter about everything we do once that happens.
Thank you. Mr. Powell.
Yes, sir. I think it's worth reminding ourselves that when we say a worldwide pandemic, we really are saying something that is affecting every human being on this planet. And so we kind of get focused on the microcosm of where we are. And I think we are doing so well in this community and in this school district that we sometimes forget just how bad it is outside our sphere of influence. And so I just want to say thank you to the board members that are sitting here and the board members that have been on this board for a while, to the superintendent and to the administrative and educators, because when we had to turn the switch and do this incredibly difficult thing, you guys had set up the board. And I say that to former board members, you've set up our district to be able to do this. And I just personally want to thank you, because this kind of thing just doesn't happen overnight. We don't get prepared overnight, but we were ready. And it's because of your efforts. So I just want to thank all of you for that and to be part of this. I would just offer, if I had a concern, it's, as we kind of get through this last end of year part, I have concerns for post-secondary. How are the colleges going to deal with receiving our seniors now graduated and those kind of things? So I hope as we go into board sessions later on, Dr. Roth, if you and your staff could kind of help us see how that's going to transpire as we go back to school in college, you know, when our kids go on. I'm just really concerned about them being as flexible and them as ready to accept our students and get them back on course to prepare them for future careers. But thank you so much to all of you.
Mr. Powell, one of the things I will, you brought up a great point. One of the things that under Dr. Watson and KSDE, they've solicited, as you may or may not know, I participate or listen to a state Zoom meeting every day with the State Department. One of the things that they are doing is they requested each superintendent to recommend a senior student to help with just that. And so they're going to select between 50 and 65 seniors across the state of Kansas. We did nominate, or we'll find out tomorrow if our nomination was accepted or not, but regardless, we'll be, that part of it will help lead what your question is. And it'll be based on what students are seeing that they need, what students not only need locally, but what they need to help with that post-secondary choice, whether it be the job market, military, whatever that would look like. And I cannot commend our State Department and the leadership of our State Department enough, because they're really stepping up with some very unique ideas to help support every district in the state of Kansas. And I'm hoping our senior gets nominated. We find out tomorrow. But regardless, students will help lead in this process as well.
And just as one follow-up, if I could, maybe in a future Zoom meeting that we have as a board, if we have to continue this, we can bring in KCK and maybe some of our other post-secondary partners we have right now to see what they see for the future come September. Just offer up that I'm sure they're thinking about it too.
Thank you. Mrs. Wells.
So I just wanted to point out the fact that because I did not vote does not mean that I don't commend all of our essential staff. My son works for our school district, so I didn't want there to be any kind of conflict of interest. But I appreciate each and every one of you, especially our food service, for providing the necessary things that our children need in the community. And I'm really proud of our district pushing it out further to those new locations today. And I hope that everybody that is hungry is able to eat. So I appreciate the efforts that they've all done. And we've got a great team of people that are reporting every day. And our teachers are doing great. I agree with Mr. Goodman. My 7th grader needs more work, please. Please give her more work. So that's all I have.
And because I'm alphabetically challenged, Mrs. Price.
It's fine, Doug. I know that we're living in historic times, and I am just amazed at the ability of our educators and our support staff to pull off the Herculean things that they had to do to make the district operate as it is. When you think about some of the other districts in our country that are still struggling, trying to figure out how to make distance learning work, our district is just knocking it out of the park. I know we've had some issues, but I just cannot thank our educators and our support staff enough, because I just think they do an amazing job. And if it wasn't evident before, it is more than evident now. And I have a very, very deep, heartfelt thank you to all of them. And I also think we all living in this, we all have to give ourselves a little bit of grace and just remember each day that we have to do this all together.
Thank you. I don't have kids at home, so I didn't pull out my hair because of problems with doing homework, like Mrs. Murphy was talking about. I lost mine a long time ago. My own 3 sons caused that to go a long, long time ago.
You're more than welcome to come over and help mine.
Social distancing, and I'm a risk factor since I'm over.
That's a cop out.
I will take it greatly. If I could go out, I would be seeing my grandson big time. But his father's a paramedic in Lawrence, and God knows I don't want to be anywhere near some of the stuff he's at.
And we've been keeping the non-scheduled patron input out. She's almost 2, so.
Yeah. Well, want to just echo everything that everybody had to say about our incredible staff and administrators. You you know, on the 13th of March, when Dr. Roth told them we're closed for the rest of the year, what does that mean? They didn't go into shock and, you know, curl up into a fetal ball and, you know, whimper. They just took at it and what do we have to do? And the little bit of money that we're trying to give extra to those people that are really essential to the district operating, the food service, the technical people, the janitors, people that do maintenance, is just, it's not what we owe them, but that's what's fiscally possible to give them right now. And then the incredible flexibility of our teachers is unreal. We saw that on the video that we saw during the thing, that 16-minute video, which was just amazingly inspiring. You know, as Kennedy said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for the country. And those people in that segment were saying they're doing everything for their kids that they can think of. And that's what makes Leavenworth Schools a really great place to have students or to be associated even tangentially like myself. And
Can I ask?
Roth, thanks to you and everybody works for you. Yes, well.
If I just want to make everybody aware, if you're not already aware, that our mayor, Mike Griswold, has been giving weekly updates in a town hall setting. I thank Dr. Roth very much for the way that he's portraying our district and giving the information out to our families. And I hope everyone watches the one that is scheduled for tomorrow. Dr. Roth, are you invited to tomorrow's meeting?
No, I'm not. I did my couple weeks ago.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the way that you portray us to the public, and you're doing a fine job with that. And everybody watch the town halls and get informed. Thank you.
Hey, Doug, I got one alibi.
Yes.
One other thing that Gloria mentioned to me, some of you may know, but she taught secondary most of her career. And she said elementary teachers definitely need to make more money.
I had a kindergarten teacher, preschool teacher as a wife. I understand that. Ain't likely to happen anytime soon, but that's okay.
Okay, I'm afraid.
All right, in that case, adjourned. Thank you all.
Stay well.
And remember, you got stuff to sign that Brenda's going to send you.
It's already sent.
All right.
Everybody stay safe.
Stay well.
Bye.